Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Aquaman Andromeda, #1 from DC Black Label. This is written by Robbie. It's got artwork by Christian Ward and lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Three fantastic talents in this industry working together to produce what I consider, and I'll go ahead and say it, the best Aquaman book I have read since Geoff Johns' New 52 run. This was phenomenal. I loved it, right? So first of all, you got Robbie, one of my favorite current comic book writers going right now. Christian Ward doing amazing, incredibly breathtaking and atmospheric giant bits. A perfect utilization of this Prestige Plus format. Solid, super solid lettering from Aditya Bidikar, and a story that is similar to Michael Crichton's Sphere in a way, but also the perspective of the story and how it's told. Aquaman remains this like mythic figure within the story, and some of the best handling of Black Manta I have ever read. So it's DC Black Label Prestige Plus. It's like it's $7, but it is totally worth it. This was such a great visual experience and a really cool story. Like I said, I'm a Michael Crichton fan. I love the book Sphere. There's a lot of similarities between Sphere and here, but the basic premise is that there is a craft or something that has landed in this spot in the ocean that's the furthest away from any habitable land, and that's where everybody dumps their like space junk at, right? Something's there, and it's causing some kind of chaos, commotion, and whatnot, right? So you got a team of scientists under the ocean. It's got this claustrophobic kind of vibe and feel, so it does tinge a little bit into horror. There is some really nice Aquaman bits, though Aquaman's not in this book much, but like I said, because of the utilization of Aquaman in this book, he remains this like mythic, legendary figure. I'm really excited to see where this goes, how it develops. Amazing art, fantastic lettering, and a super exciting story. This is the best Aquaman comic I've read since Geoff Johns. That book was fantastic. Also from DC, we got Dark Crisis issue #1. Joshua Williamson, Daniel Samperi, and we got Sanchez on the coloring. Let me see if I can pull the first name. I liked this book. I really did. Now, as I've been telling y'all, Alejandro Sanchez, as I have been telling y'all for a while now, the entire existence of this channel, I am a mark for DC Crisis events. I love them. I love them all. Even the really dumb ones, like the mini Crisis events like Zero Hour and Convergence. Like, I love those ones, right? But Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, I love them. I love the metal stuff. So, really excited to see what's going to happen here in Dark Crisis. This follows the events of the death of the Justice League. We had Josh on the channel a couple weeks ago. Definitely check out that conversation if you missed it, because he talks a lot about this. And I like it. It is a little bit of a slow start, it seems, or it would so appear, for the launch of a new Crisis event, but I really like it as dealing with the aftermath of the death of the Justice League, and where do our heroes kind of pick up the pieces, and how do different legacy heroes, how do they cope with this loss? How do they go forward dealing with this? And then also all the Crisis events. I liked it. All these pieces that Josh has been laying in for a year and a half, they have really started coming together. I think the artwork is fantastic. Lots of figures can be put on a page. Is very reminiscent of George Perez. I loved it. I loved it so much. Obviously, it has its own visual, unique style, though. Dark Crisis #1, I thought that was super solid, and I really liked the slow start and then the promised explosive stuff that's to come in just the next issue. Then we got Poison Ivy issue #1. It's a brand new Poison Ivy series. G. Willow Wilson. Is it Mariko Takara? Let me double check that name. Marcio Takara. Hassan Otsman Al on the lettering. Arif Priyanto on the coloring. It's alright. There is a backup story in this week's issue of Batman that is the prelude to this, so It's not that you have to read that one, but it would probably help this start making a little bit more sense earlier on. It's all right, but the problem I'm having with this book is that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, if you will. They're trying to have Poison Ivy be this ultra villainous persona like we've seen in the past, but at the same time kind of have, they expect us to have some empathy and there's some nuance there with it, but it just doesn't quite work together. It's got decent enough artwork, it's got some cool ideas, but it didn't completely wow me. It's just a little bit inconsistent with that personification of Ivy. But then we got Multiversity Teen Justice issue number 1. This one's all right too. So this focuses on Earth 11, which is the gender-swapped Earth. So instead of Batman and Superman, they have a Batwoman and a Superwoman. They have Aquawoman instead of Aquaman. Just all the genders are flipped on these characters, right? So this is basically the Teen Titan / Young Justice of that world, and it's all right, but honestly, I don't think this book was really geared or directed towards me. So even though I didn't really quite vibe with it, I think if you're a little bit younger and if you like things, more of the newer comics, more of the legacy characters, things to be a little bit more, I guess, 2022, I guess, you probably will like this one. It's got solid artwork. It's got some dynamism? It's got some dynamic qualities to it. But Multiversity Teen Justice just wasn't quite my bag. But it wasn't a bad comic by any stretch of the imagination. Then we got Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, number 1. They keep doing these Nubia number 1s. I'm going to keep reading them and keep just not being impressed. It was boring. It was dull. It shouldn't be. It should be more exciting. It should be filled with action. It should be filled with intrigue. But once again, it's just plodding along. I didn't like it. Then we got Flashpoint Beyond, issue number 2. Love this series. So when I first heard about this, I was really nervous. Jeff Johns working with 2 other writers to do a story where they go back to the Flashpoint reality, which kind of unraveled itself at the end of Flashpoint. It was kind of the point of Flashpoint. But I'm loving it. You got Thomas Wayne all of a sudden, when he should have been killed in Infinite Frontier, the lead up into Dark Crisis, he winds back up in his home world of the Flashpoint universe, right? But it's still the exact same, like nothing's changed. What's going on here? You also have Psycho Pirate there, and he's hiding out from the Dark Crisis, so I really like that kind of connectivity to what was going on in the main line right now with Dark Crisis. But I'm digging it, because even at the core of that, and kind of dealing with some of the dangling threads from Doomsday Clock and the Metaverse reveal and all that kind of stuff, we're still telling a very character-centric story that's also a detective murder mystery type thing. That's awesome. So many things are being done all at the same time in here, but it still maintains this cohesive narrative that I find fascinating. Flashpoint Beyond, issue number 2. Technically, we're 3 issues into that, but I'm really enjoying it. Then we got Batman 124. This is Joshua Williamson's final issue of Batman before Chip Zdarsky comes on. And then, of course, we got Ron B taking over Detective for a span. Josh Williamson, Jorge Fornes, Howard Porter. I really liked this issue. I thought it was cool. It's kind of like a coda, if you will, to Josh Williamson's very brief run on Batman. It started with the Abyss stuff, and look at that Howard Porter artwork. There is some kind of a raw edge to this. I don't know if it was deadline pressure or what, but there's a frantic, rough, kind of edgy texture to Howard Porter's artwork here that I find absolutely fantastic. But Josh started his run with the Abyss stuff, goes into Shadow War, and now we're kind of doing an epilogue going back to the Abyss stuff and tying up all of those loose ends, kind of setting up some stuff for Batman Incorporated, so I liked it. It also has that Poison Ivy backup story, which is the lead-in to the new Poison Ivy story. Then we got Dark Knights of Steel, issue number 7. It was alright. Dark Knights of Steel has been really solid, but occasionally it's not. And this one, not saying it was bad, it was cool and it moved the story forward a little bit, but with just a handful of issues left, like, I don't know if we really... I don't know. I'm ready for things to really amp up, but with issue 8 coming, 8 is going to be like 2/3 of the way through, so I think we're going to get a really crazy stuff there. So this is mostly set up, I think, for the Act 2 finale, if you want to call it that. But I did like it. Now, Nathan Gooden is here as a fill-in guest artist. Nathan Gooden's artwork is fantastic, but it's just something about it that didn't quite work for me here, but it's also because we've been spoiled on that Putri artwork. So I wish we could have kept the same artist on every single issue. Not saying anything bad about Gooden, because I love his work. He's the artist on Barbaric. But it just, I was really wanting, I really want Putri on that book, but it's pretty solid. Then we got Marvel. We got Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor issue number 1. It's the start of a new miniseries, but it does have carries legacy numbering. Is that legacy numbering from Valkyrie? Is that legacy numbering from her run on Thor? But did they count her run on Thor for the legacy numbering? Anyway, who cares? This is one of those moments where, like, I don't understand the legacy numbering. But Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor is something has happened to Thor, and the hammer has landed back at the feet of Jane Foster, so she has to become Thor again to go and solve the mystery of what's happened to Thor. I liked it. There's a lot of utilization of classic Thor villains here that aren't being used in his main run right now. So that's cool. There's a lot of them jammed in there. The artwork was pretty decent. And I liked the vibe of the story, to be honest with you. Now, obviously, this is set up because we got that new Thor movie on the horizon. Jane Foster's going to lift the hammer, become Thor and that. So you got to have a Jane Foster Thor book on the shelf. And I think they actually did a good job of tying it into current continuity and all this kind of stuff. So I liked it. I thought it was all right. Didn't completely wow me, but I did enjoy it. Then we got Savage Avengers issue number 2, the second issue from David Pepose, and I'm still loving this book. So it's a new team of Savage Avengers, but it is still centered around Conan. In the first issue, a Deathlock has come back from the future to find Conan and kill him for crimes against the timeline, because he shouldn't be where he is in the timeline. Some kind of snafu happens, and then all of a sudden the Savage Avengers, which is Cloak and Dagger, Elektra as Daredevil, Black Knight, Hulkverine, Weapon H, Anti-Venom, they all get flung back into Conan's time. So they're all back in the Hyperborean age or whatever, Hyborian age. Sure, they're back in Conan's time. Said it right the first time. But Savage Avengers is a fun book. It's fun just like its predecessor, but it does kind of have its own vision. And of course, this is kind of like a Terminator versus Conan thing, but with the Deathlocks in its place. And there's a nice nod to that in the script by David Pepose, which I really liked. Artwork's pretty solid. The story is dope. I really like the utilization of those characters. Then we got Thor, issue number 26. This is the 4th part of Banner of War, the Thor Hulk crossover by Donny Cates. He's writing both books, so of course he's going to smash these action figures together, and he's literally smashing concepts and ideas together in here. We got a Hulk Thor here. There's another thing that happens in this issue that I thought was fun, but this was just a big, bombastic fight scene that I really liked. The overall direction on Hulk right now, I haven't really been digging. The overall direction on Thor, I am liking. It's a bit inconsistent at times, but for the most part, I like it. But I'm really liking this crossover. I didn't really like the initial setup in that first, like, Alpha one-shot or whatever, but every issue since has been pretty freaking fun. And like I've said before, it's Donny Cates with his Hulk and Thor action figure just smashing, and I'm here for it. So Thor number 26 I thought was a very exciting issue. Venom number 8 is a Al Ewing penned issue, which means it's going to be Eddie Brock-centric and focused in on this whole timey-wimey thing that's going on that is absolutely confusing to me. I really like this book when Ron V's doing it, and it's the Dylan stuff. It's a little bit more grounded. There's a little bit more soul to it. With the Eddie stuff and the Meridian thing, some parts of it are intriguing. Other parts of it I'm just like, nah. But it's rather confusing, and it doesn't feel like a Venom book. That being said, I still kind of like the direction overall, but I'm ready to kind of get to where they're going. Wow us, really hook us in with what's supposed to be what is all this? Timey-wimey Kang, spinning through time, Eddie Brock, what is all that? What's going on? Get us there. Venom number 8 is out this week. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man issue number 3. Mixed bag for me. I kind of like the vibe of this story. The whole story is pretty much Tombstone torturing Spider-Man and kind of talking about his past and things. And I liked all of that. And there is this sense of danger, a true threat in this issue that I liked. And here's the thing, though. Artistically, I just cannot get behind this book. As much as I love John Romita Jr., as much as I love Scott Hanna inking John Romita Jr., it's just not working. There is something with the way it's colored. There is something where they're trying to add depth and dimension through the coloring and less through the inking. And there are moments where I see that. I look at great composition, fine line work, but there's something that's a little bit off. That page was actually better than most, but for the most, it's just, I love that it was just Tombstone torturing Peter throughout most of the issue, but there's a sense of danger, not for Peter, but for others. But what most people are expecting out of this book, which is the reveal of what's going on with Mary Jane and all that stuff, none of that again. None of it again. That being said, I liked the story, but there's something about the artwork that's just not vibing with me. From Image, we've got Skybound Presents Afterschool. Now, at first, I thought this was like going to be some young adult type thing, and maybe it's intended to be, but I loved the hell out of this book. I thought it was really cool. So it's about this young lady, and she's a little bit lonely, right? She's got a crush. She doesn't know how to approach it, right? And her parents are very supportive, and they realize this, so they get her a dog. Turns out her dog, slight spoilers, her dog's like some kind of ultra-terrestrial alien entity that comes up out of itself, and it's wild. It gets pretty gory, pretty gross. It's got some language, so it's not really, it might be considered young adult, but it's not for kids. You know what I'm saying? But I liked it. I really liked the artwork in this book. I really liked the characters in this book. I liked the flow. It had nice humor. It was pretty wild. And it does get pretty gnarly and gory in certain moments. I rather liked this book. Skybound Presents Afterschool. Came out of nowhere. Thought it was really dope. Then we've got, from Top Cow and Image, Metal Society issue number 2, the second issue of the Robots versus Humans comic book from Zach Kaplan, Guilherme Balbi, Marco Lesko, Troy Piteri. I love this book. I think it's great. So in the basic gist is this. Humanity has died out. Robots have evolved. Robots dominate the Earth. They are the ruling intelligence. They're the dominant species, right? They decide then to, just like in Jurassic Park and dinosaurs, they decide they're going to bring back humans. So they get some human DNA, they clone humans, and now they got like 3-4 generations of humans. They're starting to want to fight for their rights to, like, you know, to have their own existence and be more than just like this like slave class or something. So they put up the premise that one human is going to fight one robot, and it's going to like solve this political argument. All right. So in the first issue, we get that premise, and we get the backstory on the human character who's going to be participating in the fight. In this one, we get it from the robot's perspective, and it takes like a sinister turn, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of understand where he's coming from. So it's an interesting kind of vibe, but I really like it. I think Zach Kaplan does great with sci-fi concepts, and just telling a really solid story around those concepts, not relying on the concept, but relying on character, on pace, on dialogue, on flow, and the art really helps work, make it work. I loved this book. I loved issue 1. I loved issue 2 just as much. Then we got Twig, issue number 2. Number 1 I thought was cute and charming with some fantastic artwork, but it didn't quite grab me. In the second issue of this 5-issue series, I'm a little bit more grabbed by the charm and the adorability of this Twig character here. And as the hero's journey that Twig is on becomes more and more complicated, I'm getting more and more compelled with this story. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. The coloring is amazing. The use of no lines for panel borders really gives it this sense of air and lightness, but there is weight to the story and to the characters and to the plot and to the artwork. I actually really like Twig number 2. I thought 1 was okay, but 2 has sold me, has won me over. Then we got Spawn 330. This is another one of those issues of Spawn where you're like, okay, there's a really badass fight here between the Forsaken and Spawn, so I really liked that. But overall, I'm just kind of like, let's get to it. But then I start realizing, bro, you're reading Spawn. They're just now starting to get to it 330 issues later. So I'm still having fun with this book. It's a nice throwback. I love old school Spawn, and I love new school Spawn. It's the middle school that I've never really gotten into. So that's something to anticipate with the announcement of these upcoming compendiums. They got a 3rd and a 4th volume announced. It's going to bring us up to 200. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. Spawn 330, though, as soon as I became a Spawn fan, my life changed. It changed for the better. I still stand by that statement. Then we got Sweet Paprika, issue number 10. This is a book that I do love. It's got this kind of irreverent, sexy charm and bounce to it. But I am at the point in this book where I'm like, I am ready for this to wrap up. I think this could have easily been a 6 to 8 issue series and really been tight and solid and fun. It's starting to lose the charm that I like in this book, because we got 2 more issues and it's like it is literally the same back and forth every single episode. So I am still liking this book, but man, is it inflated. It needs to be a little, there needs to be some editing, I think, on Sweet Paprika. But I really think the book is cool. I think it's well done. The art's cool. I like the sense of it. I like the story. But oh my goodness, it's plotting that, it's stretching that shit out. Then we got Aftershock Comics giving us Where Starships Go to Die, issue number 1. You know where starships go to die? That point in the Pacific Ocean. That's the furthest place away from any occupied landmass where all the space junk goes. Whoa, that sounds familiar. Sounds like Aquaman Andromeda. So interesting that 2 books release on the same day, revolving around the same premise. What happens here? There's a mysterious craft that lands in this part of the ocean, and they have to assemble a team to go and find out what's going on with it. What? But it doesn't have Black Manta, it doesn't have Aquaman, it doesn't have Aditya Bidikar, it doesn't have Christian Ward, and it doesn't have Ram V. So this book is fine, but on a week where this came out, that's rough for this book. That being said, it didn't really super grab me. It was alright. I love that cover, but it didn't really super grab me. Neither did Astronaut Down, which is also a new one from Aftershock. James Patrick and Rubine on this one. Astronaut Down is about, I don't know, something is happening on the quantum level that's destroying reality, and mankind's trying to survive on it, but at the same time they're trying to figure out a way to solve this quantum problem. It's like almost like they're in the middle of a crisis. Like if we were literally in a crisis, we were seeing like reality fade away and a wall of white taking out parts of our existence, and we would lose like 1 million people a day or something, right? But when a city gets swallowed. This is the story of what we would do, and it's like trying to send astronauts to breach dimensions to take over their other selves in another reality. Kind of like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That whole idea of like verse jumping or whatever they called it. And it's got some neat ideas, but for the most part, it didn't really win me over. Now, I did like it a little bit more than Where Starships Go to Die, but neither of those Aftershock books really won me over. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Actually, this is just Mighty Morphin. Issue number 20. I'm getting the Legacy one solely now, so I can just have the run of the Legacy. But Power Rangers is still fun. I'm still enjoying it. And the Mighty Morphin now is written by Matt Groom, and I haven't really been liking this story because the whole purpose of this is the Power Rangers go off into space because they need a new command center, and instead of just building one, they gotta find another identical Eltarian outpost and teleport that back to Earth. It's so frickin' stupid. That whole thing does not work for me. But what I do like about this run is that there's this spotlight of Rocky. Best Red Ranger Mighty Morphin ever had. Rocky's a man. I really like Rocky in this. I like the spotlight on him, so there you go. Then from Dark Horse Comics, we have The Ward. This one's all right. It's written by Kevin Scott, artwork by Andre Ponce. We also got Mauro Montella on there. It's about this magical hospital that's hidden from view from everybody else, that treats all the mythical characters, all the creatures, the goblins, the fairies, and things like that, right? All the monsters, all the mythical legendary creatures, they all get taken care of here. So it's like this super busy ER. It's like ER but mixed with fables a little bit. So it was all right. It was a novel enough idea. It was interesting enough. It kind of kept me interested all the way through. The art didn't really do anything exceptional, but neither did the story. But it was pretty decent in its concept and its execution. Then we have Nick's number 7 from Dynamite. By the way, Dynamite right now has The Boys, an omnibus, a hardcover omnibus of The Boys being kickstarted right now. I'll drop a link in the description below. We'll talk more about that fully on the weekly pop culture wrap up on Saturday morning. But Nick's number 7, I'm enjoying this book. Nyx is like a Vampirella villain, I think. She's half demon, half human. She's trying to live a human life, but her demon father keeps getting involved, including the latest stretch from him, which is also weird, is that he has birthed all these like little baby chaos demons, and she has somehow agreed to raise them. So this is Nyx, who just wants to go out and and seriously just have sex and party, right? And like, and who can blame her, right? But now she's bogged down by having all these damn demon babies to take care of. And the way that she works this problem out, I loved. And the book is so funny. It does not take itself very seriously. I dig it. Nyx, issue number 7, I'm into it. Then we got Quest Aside, issue number 2 from Vault Comics. I thought issue number 1 was all right. I remember saying something like, you know, I'm not really a D&D fantasy kind of guy, but if you are, this might be the book for you, because every character in here is like somebody's character in a D&D campaign. And I guess when you play D&D, sometimes there's a bar you always go to and meet up or something and pick up quests or something. This is about the bar where that happens, but the owner of this bar has a mysterious history, and he's got this relationship with the king. And in the last issue, the king shows up and he's like, yo, I'm taking over your bar. I know we're homies and all, but you gotta go, deuces. I ain't even gonna buy it from you, bro. I'm just gonna take this over for myself. And that's how kings are back in those days, man, in these fantasy lands. But Quest Aside issue number 1, like I said, I thought it was all right. It just wasn't quite for me, but if you're a hardcore like D&D head, if you like books revolving around that, you're gonna like it, right? That being said, issue number 2, I was a little bit more captivated by than issue number 1. So I liked this issue. I thought it was cool. It's kind of building up a little bit more mystery about this bar owner, and fleshing out some of the characters filling this world. So I liked it. I thought it was cool, and it's all taking place at this bar so far, and I really like that. It's like a bottle episode, but for a whole series. Then we got Archer and Armstrong Forever, issue number 2. A delight. I'll be honest with you. Valiant is about to have a big come up, I think. We got Cullen Bunn doing Book of Shadows. We got Liam Sharp going to be doing Exo Manowar at the end of the year, and then in between all that, we got Dennis Camp, John Davis Hunt coming in doing Bloodshot. I'm so pumped. But don't sleep on this Archer and Armstrong book. Like, that's a cool enough idea. One of them is an immortal. One of them was raised in a sect of like crazy zealots whose whole purpose was to find these immortals and kill them. They wind up becoming best friends, right? And it's a comedic book, but it's also an adventurous book. Well, now the immortal one, I can never remember which one, who's who between Archer and Armstrong. But now the immortal one is getting hurt, not immortal anymore. So in this one, the other one doesn't want to lose his friend, and they go through all the checklist of all the potential places to become immortal, and they go and check them out. This book is fun. If you like stuff like Quantum and Woody, even if you like a Deadpool and Harley Quinn, Mark, you might want to check this book. It's got just the right amount of silly, but just the right amount of heart for me. I really like it. Then we also have Artist Elite Primer Blue. Primer Red came out last week, I believe, with Artist Elite's going to be an upcoming anthology comic. A lot of popular creators, a lot of 90s creators, Brett Booth, Ben Templesmith, Ali Garza. Ali's got his work in here. So does Dexter Choi and Chad Harden. The concepts in this one didn't win me over as much as the concepts in Primer Red, but technically, I guess these are the first appearances of these. Now, I really like that Freddie Williams artwork there. So you're getting a little bit of a synopsis of what these stories are going to be and a little sample of the artwork. Some of it usually is very raw. Some of it is straight up what it's going to look like on the printed page. But all together, I am excited to see what they wind up doing with this Artist Elite book. I think it's got some potential, and I'm excited to see where they go. And then there's the Ale Garza one right there. So I think that's going to be the highlight of this one for a lot of people. So I thought it was all right. So yeah, that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. Don't sleep on Archer and Armstrong if you're a D&D fan. Check out Quest Aside. Aftershock just did not shock and awe me this week. Aquaman Andromeda, though, that was definitely the pick of the week. Spawn is always fun. Spider-Man's kind of a mixed bag. Twig definitely improved. DC, let's see, Flashpoint was awesome, and I loved me some Dark Crisis. So there you go. And also Thor, that was wild. But Aquaman Andromeda, I love this book. If you read it, let me know in the comments below. What'd you think of this book? What'd you think of anything else? What's your pick of the week? What are your favorites? Let us know down below. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out the video. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and even more. I've already done the I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups bit, haven't I? Yeah. Station. Pop, pop, boom.